hammer. That kind of reminds me of that movie Thor, ironically enough. He really just needs to stop this tank and just kill this one Zergling. Oh, actually just opting to say, let's shell it from above. We have unlimited artillery shells, so we might as well attack them with our Crucio shock cannon. And is it certainly a shock to be hit by one of those? I am sure if you are a Zergling, that is not where you want to be when the Terran player does in fact have a 1 armor or 1 attack upgrade. They do die in one shot, opting to throw down a lot of infested Terran. It's not like this barracks is really doing anything, it's just kind of scouting, being a harmless little barracks. I'm sure the driver of the barracks was kind of shocked to hear that he was going to fly out over the Zerg army to be a scout. He's kind of used to just kind of chilling in a landed and training Marines, but not anymore. He is actually going to go on a suicide mission. Looks, excuse me for that sniffle. Like I was saying, man, the sniffles are a terrible, terrible thing. Actually opting to move the barracks back. Smart choice. We can keep every single barracks driver alive and well. You know, a question that I've always had, though, is where does the barracks driver really sit? I know there's a way to rotate the camera, but I actually do not know how to do it. Let's see if I can figure it out. I'm going to figure this out. Maybe right-click, maybe both-click. Okay, I have no idea, but I'm sure he'd be sitting right here, and you can actually see from the side here, if you look really closely, you can see a little window. I think it's kind of cool, just the little tiny things that the StarCraft 2 creators do. They compensate for the fact that a driver does need a window and he will not be able to fly blind, so they do have the window at the front with Terran building plating protecting this unit. I've always wondered, what is the Planetary Fortress's weapon? The Abicki's Cannon. See, what kind of name is the Abicki's Cannon? You really have no idea. Actually, the Zerg player opting for Ultralisk, Roach, Infestor, Zergling combination. I really like this, and you can see this is why the Terran player really needs to put pressure on the Zerg player early game, is because now the supply is 192 to 156. Goody actually supply blocking himself, building 4 supply depots. And automatically, as soon as he unsupply blocks himself, he gets back 20-ish supply. And the Zerg is going to throw out this quickly, but the actual advantage to these Hellions is he will in fact see the Ultralisks who can 1A their way to victory. And so because of seeing those Ultras, he will probably opt to be getting out a couple of Marauders, or maybe just getting out more tanks. I don't think we really need this nameplate anymore, considering that our production tab is getting pretty big. You can see on the production tab we actually do have Terran Vehicle Weapons level 2 and Terran Plating level 2, so he is opting for a heavy mech play. You can usually tell what kind of play a Terran player is going for early game just by, if you are playing in the actual game and you are a Zerg or a Protoss, just click on their units. If they have 0-1 on their mech and they have 0-0 on their Marines, you can really just kind of guess that they're going to be going into late game mech style play. And I mean, that's just the little things that really help, you know. And that's like the kind of thing that Day 9 actually talked about in a recent daily, which was scout without scouting as a Zerg player. It's little tiny cues you can do. He's actually using this Viking here to pick off his Overlord while we do have this drop, but this drop is going to take a while. Excuse me for that sniffle again. I know that must be annoying to you guys, but unfortunately my nose is my nose and I cannot make it stop running. He's going to be killing a couple of units here. He's really doing good harassment here with this Viking. He may actually just force it. Yeah, so you can see he's going to force a lot of Zerglings back. And this is going to be that sweet little spot, and he really just needs to be careful with these Hellions. These Hellions aren't going to really do much in an army composition against Infestors. And infesting, did he steal the Terran or the Thors? No, he actually opts to get the siege tanks. And I don't really see the Terran player holding this off too effectively without taking massive amounts of damage. He does pick away at a lot of Ultralisks though, and these siege tanks, this is beautiful positioning. You can see the siege tanks actually do protect this expansion here and the entrance to this expansion here. This is kind of excellent placement. So the Zerg then also smartly opts to get the third, but Goody even then knows that there are no really air units or anti-air units that can shoot his orbital, so he just simply lifts it off, and that orbital will be safe, choosing to land it down. He's probably going to drop a lot of mules here. Doesn't really want to mine yard any sort of SCVs. If I was him, that's what I would do. But then again, he is at risk of losing all of those mules if he did drop them, and then he had to lift this later. So now Zerg is realizing that his weakness is in the air, and he doesn't want to be abused, so he's going to be getting Corruptors. I would definitely be expecting a greater Spire, and just as I'm saying that, there it is. Probably finished a long time ago. He was just waiting for some kind of money. Here comes a drop by the Hellions, but the Zerg scouts it. I'm sure it was throtted already, and I think this medevac is going to die. This is kind of bad control by Goody. He really should have just moved this out a lot longer ago. So he's going to lose this medevac with both Hellions inside of it. And here we go. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 Broodlords coming on the way. This is kind of the spot where Terran cries just a tiny bit, opting to get a lot of missile turrets, and I'm guessing if we look at the production tab, you can see 3 Vikings on the way. He's going to be desperately producing Vikings, training still Hellions. I don't really know if Hellions are going to be the good unit choice, considering that the Zerg player did opt for a very heavy Ultralisk Infestor Roach play, but he is transitioning into a lot of Zerglings. The thing that Zerg is doing great is macroing. He opted to take a lot of bases. His creep spread is a little bit slow, however, so it will be a little bit harder for him to seize easier and easier map control. He really wants to hold the Terran player to 3 to 2 bases, preferably 3 because he just has so many so that he can do the macro. He really wants to start denying this expansion here, and here we go. Here comes the first engagement. He actually does fungal growth the Vikings. If he can fungal growth all the Vikings, it will render all of these, or these Broodlords will be free to do all of their damage. This Corruptor here is just having free reign. He really should pick it down. It's taking more and more infested Terran, and I really don't know what the Terran player will be able to do. All he has is a whole bunch of siege tanks that will be killed by an infinite amount of Broodlords, because Broodlords do create an infinite amount. But there are no Corruptors here. He's getting 2 Corruptors. I think he should really be building some more. His supply is dropping pretty heavily. He does have 1k gas in the bank, just continuing this harass with the Broodlords, but all these Broodlords will be picked off just because of the simple fact that he's not really rallying these Corruptors here, picking off this Viking here. He can really be running it away. I don't know what this Infestor is deciding to do. He's like, hey guys, I can drop a single infested Terran, and all they are really doing is laughing at him. And there's more siege tanks. I don't know if that was the smartest engagement for the Zerg player. He really should have waited until he had just a couple more Corruptors. He should have known that the Terran player was going to go for a high Viking count late game. I think RGI Matix could have ended the game there if he had instead opted to get out a less heavy Broodlord composition and more of a Corruptor heavy composition. And now the Terran player is really just going to react by building a massive amount of Vikings, building a massive amount of Thors, and this is going to be that late game mech army that is just absolutely fearful for his Zerg player to deal with. You can see that Goody is just kind of pushing in with Hellions. He's going to try to do any sort of harass he can. He may be able to kill all of these Zerglings. This Ultralisk here, it's really easy to kite an Ultralisk, but there's the fungal growth. It is not so easy to kite a unit when your units cannot move. He is going to lose this Hellion here. And if you just take a look, late game actually requires a much higher APM than the earlier games, in the sense that you just need to be constantly building SCVs, constantly be morphing things in, constantly be checking your front, constantly just checking every little aspect, constantly be just really heavy on the minimap looking, because a Zerg late game, I really think that he should be taking the abuse of the Nidus Worm play. He can start Nidusing here, Nidusing here. You've seen Spanishiwa do it to great effect, especially against a mech play, because mech play is obviously ridiculously slow. You can see Thors, they just kind of clumber along they probably weigh a ton. The guy inside of them is a total badass, but that does not, you can see like kind of like rock on bro if you look at the unit picture. You know, see there it is again. It's a constant loop. And this Thor is just kind of doing a little bit of dance. He's trying to say, hey, I am not slow. I am in fact a total boss. And the barracks, excuse me, I can apparently not talk as well as have a cold. He's just kind of landing. He's just going to try to deny any sort of expansion for as long as possible. The Zerg player actually just opting to take every single expansion on the map. But the SCV player, the Terran player, is just going to be content off of 5 bases. Well, now 4.5. I consider gas a half a base, because gas is still an extremely important resource. And actually mining out here, the Zerg could just be saying, you know what, I'm just going to sit on every single map, or every single expansion at the base, and I will wait for you to mine out this base and this base, because this base here is mined out, this base is already mined out, and this base is about to be mined out. You can see only 400 minerals on each of these. Or am I missing a Nidus Worm play? No, both players just content on macroing up. Again, they both hit 200, 200, and this mech army is just extremely scary, opting for a very high siege tank count with a high Viking count, with a high Thor count. This is going to be extremely scary for the Zerg player to deal with, and willing to sack his 4 SDVs. That's really what he's doing. He's not sending them in for any sort of damage or any sort of tricky play. He's just simply sending them in, saying, here, you can have them, but I'm going to get as much scouting as I can. And the Zerg player saying, oh no, an SCV! Send the line, and he sends every single unit. Actually almost lost a Baneling there. on the SCV. That would have not been worth it. And these SCVs are just mining away. They're saying, hey, we were supposed to be mining mining minerals, not mining SCVs. They are supposed to be repairing units and mining minerals. We're not supposed to be attacking a building. Why can we not have a gun? And this Zergling just comes in and he is saying, hey guys, look, I am going to get 3 kills here. Absolutely no problem. Pushing in, and if we look at the unit counting station, we can see 73 drones to 75 SCVs, so it's relatively even, but 75 SCVs is way too many SCVs to be supporting off of 2 base. You can see actually opting to drop a lot of meals, and here comes the engagement. The Ultralists are just streaming in, but this is kind of a bad engagement time. A lot of Vikings coming in, and there is a fungal growth on top of the Vikings, although Corruptors are going to die. Both of the Thors are being neuroparasited, and all of the Siege Tanks are being neuroparasited, but these Siege Tanks are going to be doing a massive amount of damage, and once you lose your Siege Tank army, it is nearly impossible to rebuild it, considering that what a Thor takes like 50 million seconds. A Siege Tank alone takes 50 seconds, and is he even opting to get Thors out? No, he's not. He's just deciding to train more and more Vikings, and if I was a Zerg player, I'd really be pushing into this third. 2 Fungal Growths actually does kill every single SCV here, so if he Fungal Growths here and here, he will lose both of those. All of those SCVs, Fungal Growth here and a Fungal Growth here, will lose all of those SCVs. And there's not really much that the Terran player can do now, because mech play, once it dies, it is nearly impossible to reproduce a massive army. You'll just see these infestors are just going to clean up, trying to kite as best he can. A fungal growth will put a stop to that kiting shenanigans, but he's just going to be constantly raining down on these Ultralists. The Ultralists do have chitinous plating, which is a biological term, I guess. Anyways, chitinous plating is what it is actually named. It is not named anything else, and that gives them an extra 2 armor, which gives them a total of 6 armor, but that does not do much against a Crucio shock cannon. That is literally my new favorite